Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So today we're going to answer a question from Facebook Guitar Group. The difference between an Epiphone and a Gibson. Okay, now I happen to own one of each, both of them being Les Pauls. My Epiphone is a Custom Pro. My Les Paul from Gibson is a Studio, which has been heavily modified with a lot of gold hardware, where the Epiphone already came with it. So what are the differences? Well, price is obviously a really good point of difference between the two. Gibson tends to be a lot more expensive than the Epiphones. Although the Epiphones can get up there in price too. Don't be fooled, okay? Both companies have quality control issues. No matter what you do, you can pick up a guitar and get bad frets, which is why I always tell people, stop ordering online because you don't know what you're getting when it gets there. And it might not even show up in one piece, which happens quite often, it seems. No matter if it's a Gibson or an Epiphone or any brand for that matter. I've seen it in all brands across the board. Anything with a 3-in-3 headstock or a headstock that's got a back rake, forget it. I mean, I've seen it all. All right. Now, you're going to find that when you're paying the higher price, you're getting much higher quality woods. You're getting a lot better workmanship, especially on the frets. I mean, oh my gosh. I played on a $5,000 Gibson, and I can't remember what model it was, and I was checking it out and bending the strings, and I'm like, oh, that is so silky smooth, you know, and they're so nicely done, and the fretboard and the whole thing. I was like, oh, I wish. But it was a right-handed version, and I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a guitar anyway, but I still wouldn't spend it on a right-handed version. Even if my budget was higher. I don't believe personally, guys, in spending more than $2,500 tops on any guitar before tax. Okay, now I've got well over $3,000, probably with taxes, yeah, a lot tied up in my studio. Because I also wanted to stick with a lot of Gibson original parts on top of that, and when you're paying for gold parts, ching baby, okay, and anyways, so with my Epiphone Les Paul Custom Pro, I paid, I think it was about $8.99 or something like that before tax. Now, you got to also keep in mind before you Americans flip your lid, I live in Canada, so my prices are going to be in Canadian dollars when I talk about this unless otherwise specified. So anyways, continuing on. The Epiphone has a much less back rake on the headstock over the Gibson, okay? Which makes it more viable for tuning stability. I don't need a string butler. I don't need nut sauce. I don't need any kind of modifications whatsoever to my Custom Pro to keep it in tune. It just stays beautiful right out of the box. It's been great. My SG, I didn't really need a string butler on it, but I threw one on anyways, just in case, because you never know. Because I do like to bend my strings too, like the next guy, okay? Now, with the string butler, I'm able to bend up a full step and a half on my studio, and it stays in tune, okay? Where without the string butler, I get up about a half step and forget it. Okay, it's gone. It's out, right? So the string butlers do actually work, and they work really well, and I do highly recommend them in situations where you can use them. And I say that because the Epiphone, another difference between Epiphone and Gibson, is Epiphone has a much thicker headstock, okay? You cannot put a string butler onto an Epiphone Les Paul, at least not mine for sure, because my headstock is a lot thicker than it is on my Gibson, okay? So already I've got a much stronger headstock. Now what happens when I did try? Well, okay, I can put the string through just, and that's about it. I got no room for wrap. And, you know, locking tuners, they're great for faster string changes, but they're absolutely useless for tuning stability. They do nothing. Some people think they do, and they got this mindset because they believe it, because they were told that. What you believe, you tend to program yourself for that it's better. And really, I have experience with locking tuners myself. And the only benefit I found, was faster string change. That was it. I'm still putting wraps, okay? Don't have to put as many wraps, but you still got to put wraps on. because without wraps on there, your tuning stability is not the world's best. Now, some people say yes, some people say no to that, and that's fine. We're not getting into a debate here, okay? What we're doing is we're talking about the differences, okay? So you've got wood is a difference. Thickness of headstocks is a difference, okay? Now, I don't know if all Epiphones have thicker headstocks than all of the Gibsons in the same kind of a guitar, but from what I've seen so far, definitely in the Les Pauls. Now, my SG that I had was able to use a string butler with no problems. Much thinner headstock like a Gibson. But I didn't even need the string butler on there, but I threw it on anyways, just in case, because you never know. So, anyways, and I've actually crossed my mind to buy that thing back from Long McQuaid because, yeah, it's still a nice guitar, and I kind of miss it a bit, but, you know, it served a purpose. I have methods to my madness for what I do with gear, and they understand that now that I know why I do what I do a lot of times. I go through a lot of gear, you know, because I'm still trying to get that collection the way I want it, the guitars that I know I'm going to use, so I may likely not buy back my SG, who knows. You know, it is a nice guitar, and it's nice to have it as part of the collection, you know, because I have a Strat, I've got a Les Paul, I don't have an SG, and I'm probably never ever going to buy a Telecaster again. Not that I have anything against them, you know, the one that I had was a nice Tele, but do I really need it? No, okay? Will I actually play it? Likely not, okay? My Strat was bought for the purpose of being a kicker guitar because I don't care about it. Okay, so if it gets beat to heck and banged up, and I play it in really cold weather, which is another reason why I bought it, because I will not take an acoustic out in that kind of weather, let alone any of my other good guitars. So I bought it for that purpose, for the stuff that we do. I play on my church worship team, so a lot of times I play acoustic, sometimes I play electric. When I play electric, that's when my GT1000 comes along for the ride, and we do some, you know, freaky effects with that thing for some of the songs, and you know, it doesn't work with all the songs, so, you know, sometimes I just bring the acoustic instead, depending on what we're playing that weekend. But anyways, we do outdoor stuff too, and that is where the Strat comes in handy for me. And I did do some upgrades on it because it needed better pickups and, you know, that sort of thing. But I haven't done a lot of modifications to it. But when it comes to these guitars, the Epiphones and the Gibsons, you know, there are a lot of differences. Fretwork between both of mine are great on both, okay? Now, here's another difference I found out, too. Gibson does what's called cryo-freeze tempering on their frets, where Epiphone doesn't do that, okay? So you're going to have a much harder, stronger fret on the Gibson over the Epiphone. Now, I don't know if they do it to all Gibsons, but from the models I've looked at, yes, and including mine, apparently. The choices, even through Gibson now, are getting smaller and smaller for colors. They're going to do this many colors in this model, this many colors in that model, and so on, and that's it, unless you go to the custom shop and chick-ching, baby. With Epiphone, they have certain colors as well. They do the same thing. All the companies do. Okay, and companies are starting to also make less and less of certain models, not because of value, because they're not going to gain any extra value. And this is the greatest deception of all that is going to really hurt probably a few people when I say this. Not very many Gibsons, period, that have ever been made since day one to now actually gain substantial value. Some games gain some are incredible gainers, okay, like the 59 gold top with the P90s in it. Now that is a guitar that apparently is worth like close to $500,000 because that's how much the last one sold for, and there's only a couple left in the world that are still intact, okay, of that specific guitar. So not all 59 original Les Pauls are going to be substantial value to them. Only, in this case, this particular model is worth that kind of money, apparently. Personally, I think it's ludicrous. Okay, now, I mean, that guitar brand new sold for $300. I could see maybe $3,000 or $4,000, but $500,000, give me a break. Now, wood quality. Ash is ash, maple is maple. Okay, it's black and white. Now, when you start getting into different types of maple that are more exotic and more expensive, and mahogany that's more exotic species of mahogany, because there are several species, okay, etc. Now you're getting much more expensive woods. Same as if you get a guitar that's got a rosewood body or a rosewood body and neck. I mean, that's a beautiful guitar, right? You don't even dare touch paint on that. That would be blasphemy, okay? However, that would also be an extremely heavy guitar, but also very costly, because rosewood, whether it's Brazilian rosewood or Mexican rosewood or Indian rosewood or some other rosewood, it's all, there's a lot of woods that are in the rosewood family. Even if I remember right, Purple Heart was in there too. Anyhow, so rosewood, but the common rosewood, okay, very expensive. Everybody who's followed my channel knows that I've made rosewood gun grips. I've done other work with many of the exotic woods out there. I think about the only wood I really stayed away from was snakewood. And you'd never see a guitar with snakewood anyways, because there would be so many layers laminated together to make a guitar, and the cost would be outrageous. Because just for a little sliver of snakewood, about yay long and about so wide, and it'd be about 1/4 of an inch at one end and, micro thin at the other, that was like a $65 slice of wood. So do the math on what it would take to build a guitar out of snakewood. Yeah, really phenomenal. Okay, but beautiful wood, no two ways about it. So you're paying for what? You're paying for wood quality differences. You're paying for fret quality differences. Now, even on an expensive guitar, you can get shitty fretwork. Happens with Gibson all the time. Happens with Epiphone too. Quality control is not that great with any company. Never really has been, I guess, except maybe back in the old day when people actually worked for what they earned. Nowadays they earn big money and they don't work for it. So this is why we get crappier guitars at times, right? So not everyone rolling out is going to be a great guitar. Now, by not ordering online, you go down to your local music store and that's where you buy your guitars. You order something online, you don't know what you're getting. I buy all my guitars in store. Now, I've had Long McQuaid bring guitars in for me from another store, or maybe they had to order it from the manufacturer, but I didn't pay a bloody dime for that guitar until I played it, okay? And if it passed, it come home. If it didn't pass, sorry, find me something else, okay? And so far I haven't had to do that, which has been great. But every guitar so far has passed, and including, everything, like the whole guitar is beautiful, right? Now, let me show you my Gibson Les Paul. Now, this is a 2018 Studio, and this has the Smokehouse Burst on it, which is the nicest version of the Burst. Now, see, Gibson, well, like any other company, they hand paint their guitars. They spray them and stain them and so on, right? So every burst is not going to be the same. They have a studio on the wall in there right now at Long McQuaid, and I'll tell you, I don't like the burst on it. But this, even me and the manager love the burst that came with this one. That was like, oh, that's so amazing, But, I mean, I've made changes to this to my liking, okay, by adding all the gold hardware, the Shaler strap blocks. I'm still running the original pickups and the original pots, okay? But I changed what I wanted to change on it, and I did have to add a string butler to get better tuning stability, okay? And it is very stable. And the action is extremely low on this guitar. So I'll give you an up close. It's got an extremely low action to it, which is what I like. I like it low, and there's not one bit of buzz anywhere. Great guitar. Love it, okay? And I got a lot tied up in that one. Now here's my Epiphone Custom Pro. Now this was under $1,000. Okay, I paid $18.99 for the Gibby. Now this thing already came with all the gold except for the poker chip and the Shaler strap locks. But all the gold otherwise was here. It had keystone tuners, and so I just took off the tuner key and put on the tulip tuner, as they call it. Some people have another name for it. You'll find there's no string butler on here. Number one, it's not required because Epiphone has such a minimal back rake. Okay, now take a really good look at that. Freeze the video if you want. And we're going to go back to my Gibson. Also, this has a real sick low action on it as well. No buzzing anywhere, no dead spots. Both guitars are beautiful. Okay, so take a good look. All right, now let's go to the other one. And this thing has really fancy binding on it too for the Epiphone. You know, I wish my Gibson had that nice binding. Now look at the back rake on this baby. Okay, now that's a huge night and day difference. Okay, so let's face it around the way the other one was. That's a massive pile of back rake in comparison. So, you know, it has to have a string butler, and it stays in tune great, because if you'll notice, the strings are all straight the way they should be. Okay? It looks kind of freaky with that butler, but I swear by those string butlers. They do work. Now, if you look at the Epiphone again, let's check the back rake again. Okay, so you can see it is nowhere near the same. Okay, and of course, no string butler. I can't use one on this anyhow. All right, because as soon as I put one on, I can't even get my strings threaded through properly. Well, they'll thread through, but I got no room for any wrap. Okay. So that's a huge difference, and this one stays in tune beautiful. Either one, I can bend them up a step and a half and they stay solid, you know. And like I said, the only thing I did to this was Shaler strap locks and a gold poker chip. That's it. That's all I've done to this. I haven't even touched the necks on them. So, you know, they're great. And that's a $1,000 guitar basically, okay, versus almost a $2,000 guitar. And yet the Epiphone is more stable and it doesn't need the string butler. But both of them have the same stability, but the Gibson has to have a string butler on it. So it's kind of like, and they both have gold and blah, 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 you know. I did change one other thing on the Epiphone. I changed the knobs. I didn't like the plastic knobs that came with it. So on the basic levels, that's what your differences are between a Gibby and an Epiphone. So there are a number of differences. It's your choice what you want to buy. Back over 10 years ago, I bought a Epiphone Les Paul Standard, and it sucked. I had nothing but grief with that guitar. And I ditched it, and that was $700 out of my pocket, you know, with taxes and stuff. I was not amused, and I swore them off for Epiphones until I bought my SG, which I got before my Les Pauls. And that SG is great SG. It doesn't need a string butler, but I threw one on anyway, you know, and because you never know, just in case, right? And at least it did fit, because the SG has a thinner headstock than my Custom Pro. My Custom Pro's got a way thicker headstock than my Gibson, you know, which, you know, a Gibson, no headstock on any guitar is going to snap unless something happens to cause it to snap. And it ain't going to be from just putting a set of strings on, okay? It's going to happen because it's going to get knocked the wrong way. It's going to get flying on the floor. It could go flying across the stage because you trip over your amp cord. I am so scared to death of amp cords with guitars. I had to use an amp cord for one service with my Gibby, and I also stepped on the damn thing and unplugged it. So it's like, that's kind of sucky. I did that during practice, not during the main service, so I was not amused because for some reason I think I forgot my wireless that day to pack it. But I swear by wireless systems, you know, and I use the Boss system now, and I love it. I've not had any issues. You know, it works great. And you can check out the Boss ones on my channel, and I talk all about them. And there's pros and cons to everything, okay? That's the big thing. You just got to decide, you know, what you can live with and what you can't, and then make your decision. But do yourselves a favor, guys, in future. Shop at your local stores. If you are looking for a particular guitar and you're not too worried about, you know, because you saw a YouTube video, which is the most deception out there. But anyway, if you are going to get a guitar brought in, make sure that you don't pay anything until it shows up, and you inspect it to make sure the fretwork is good, there's no sharp edges, blah, 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 you know, and then you pay for it. Okay, now a lot of music stores will give you a free setup with your purchase at time of purchase, or maybe you can come back in a week and get it done, however that kind of rolls. But get a professional setup right away, and away you go. You should hopefully be happy, you know. No guarantee on that. But when you're testing the guitars, if you already own an amp, bring your amp with you. You're going to find room acoustics are going to be different, okay? But at least you'll know how the thing sounds to your amp, okay? A lot of guys change pickups because they blame the pickups. It's not always the pickups. It could be the pickups need an adjustment because there's no consistency whatsoever in pickup heights, okay? There's no consistency in pickup manufacturing. 2 sets of 57 classics, 3, 4, 5, 1,000, 10,000. Same with your Pro Buckers or whatever is in your other guitar, okay, your 400 series pickups. Not one set will ever be the same. The resistance values are going to be slightly off, but they're going to be darn close, okay? But even the sound won't be the same from one to another, and it's not just because they're not equally round properly each time. It's also got to do with pickup height, angles, etc. Sometimes all you got to do is adjust the height and not a new set of pickups. But I guess it depends on whatever floats your boat too. It's up to you. It's your money. I really could care less. I put new pickups in my Court electric, and I love the pickups, and they are vintage wound Zebra Les Paul copies, and they were like 12 or 13 bucks from Banggood, okay? And the pickups that were in my guitar were, well, pretty expensive, but I didn't care for them anymore. I put Alnico 4 pickups, I believe it was, into my Strat. I didn't like the stock pickups. They sucked. I still have them, but they'll never go back in there, you know. And again, they're vintage noiseless pickups. What came with it were a little noisy, so I got vintage coil wound that are noiseless. So, hey, I can't complain. But anyways, that's what I got for you today. I missed something, so if you do have a question, feel free to ask. And as always, I will do the very best I can to answer it if I can, and we'll go from there. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And now you've got more of an education on the differences between a Gibby and a Epiphone, regardless of which model guitar. Okay, so there you go. See you later.